You are now tuned in to Let It Be the Podcast with Fergie, a podcast where we discuss a variety of topics from lifestyle, faith, and the struggles of the everyday believer. This is a podcast about simply releasing control and just letting things be. I'm so glad you tuned in for the conversation, and don't worry, it's safe here. What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning in to the very first episode of Let It Be the Podcast. I also want to wish you a happy new year. We are in 2022. God be with us because, these last couple of years have been crazy. Anyways, I figured what better way could I start this thing off than by talking about identity. Now, I'm not just talking about identifying myself, although, yes, I'm going to get into who I am a little bit later, but I'm talking about identifying who you are as well. Now, it's 2022 and we are still in a pandemic, y'all. Yes, even though you see a lot of people out here not wearing masks and just out kicking it like ain't nothing going on, like the Omarion ain't real and the I Hate You variant and all these new variants that they got coming out. We are still in a pandemic, y'all. Anyways, if this pandemic hasn't shown you anything else, it's definitely shown you that you really don't have control like you think you do. I know a lot of us have probably taken time to self-reflect and think about, who we are. For me, I'll speak for myself at least. Like, this pandemic really slowed us down and it helped me kind of like have time with myself since I'm working from home and not out as much and not as busy as I was used to being. It made me kind of do some self-reflection, and hopefully it showed you who you are as well. Maybe showed you some things that you wanted to work on to change. I know it definitely did that for me. It made me be still. To be honest, I started going to therapy. I started doing things that I would have never made time to do before. And it's honestly been a gift, to be honest, for me. Now, I know like in the, 2020, because to be honest, like these last couple of years have been a flash. I'm still thinking back to like 2019, thinking, like I had all these plans for 2020. And I know y'all saw those vision boards and 2020 vision, and we about to be this, we about to be lit, living our best life. And all those things are great. And I'm sure some people, they have fulfilled the goals that they've set. But like I said, the stillness that this pandemic has allowed us to have really gave me an opportunity to do some self-reflection, and it showed me a lot of who I am, who I want to be, who I thought I was. It really made me kind of like take a step back and say, hey girl, you ain't got it all together like you think you do. You got some work to do. And so I'm hoping that, I'm not the only person that's had that revelation over these last couple of years. And I know that not everybody is going to have the same revelation, as each other or as me. I'll say that. And what this pandemic has also shown me is that everybody's perception is not the same. Their perception of their self-growth, it's not the same. For me, it might look like, okay, like full speed ahead. What do I need to work on? Okay, bam, 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 let's do it. Everybody's not self-motivated like that. And it's given me, like an opportunity to extend grace to people, extend grace to, people's progress, because you can't measure yourself up to anybody else. And it really had me thinking, two words that came to mind. And I'll tell you how I came across these two words, but it really stuck to me like glue. I was actually having a session one day, a therapy session, and my therapist wore a shirt and it said set apart. And it had me thinking about myself, like, okay, set apart. I mean, God set us all apart. He made us all unique because he has us on this earth to do different things. And those words helped me. Like it stuck me so hard because it was a time where I was struggling. Like I was at a place where I was dealing with imposter syndrome. And I know I'm not the only person, like dealing with imposter syndrome, feeling like you're not good enough to be in a space or feeling like you're not doing enough. And I thought more and more about it, and it gave me comfort and it encouraged me to like, stop comparing yourself. You're set apart. God made you unique. He designed all of us to be set apart because, to be honest, what if he made us all the same? It wouldn't be a point of life. It wouldn't be a point because everybody's doing the same thing. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in comparing ourselves to other people and what they're doing. And it kind of discredits the work that we've done in ourselves. Even if like our own progression doesn't look, it's not as fast paced or, it's not as flashy or it's not as shiny as the next person. Like, so what? Like God has you on your own unique path, and being set apart is like, it helped me every time I found myself comparing myself to somebody else or doing something, that wasn't authentic to who I am. And I'm not saying like out here being a fraud, but a lot of times, and we probably won't ever always admit it, but we'll get caught up in like looking at our friends, and especially like now at this big age, like we see a lot of our friends getting married and having babies and just, traveling, and maybe you kind of looking at yourself like, dang, like I'm still asking so and so what's their favorite color, or me and my boo ain't ready to have kids yet, or I don't know if I want to marry this dude or this girl who, I don't know who's listening, but I'm just saying, like, all of us, like, we get so caught up in comparing ourselves to other people that we discredit the uniqueness that God has given us. And I think that that's something that we all should kind of like take a step back to kind of analyze, because we don't really know what other people's personal journeys consist of. You don't know the insecurities that other people are dealing with, the imposter syndrome that they're dealing with. A lot of times, especially like I said on social media, because that's kind of where the world lives now, we'll look at somebody else and say, oh, okay, well, they're doing it like that, I need to do it like that. They hitting social media hard and they're promoting their brand and they're doing all this, I got to do it like that, or I'm gonna get left behind, or I'm being overlooked or passed up. And like, you got to learn how to like just chill out. And so that's where I like, after having this revelation, I felt like, dang, somebody else needs to hear this. And I've had these conversations with friends and family and things like that, and I wanted to kind of like present it on this platform, like, okay, maybe somebody else needs to hear it too. So that's what we're gonna focus on for this series. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but I do have some good conversations coming up just about how other people are dealing with, embracing their uniqueness and, walking in their light and figuring themselves out and giving themselves grace and taking time. So I wanted to jump off with that. Okay, so I want to start off by just sharing a little bit of my testimony, a little bit about how I came to where I am now. But first, I want to insert a disclaimer. I am in no way here to cast any judgment or force my beliefs on anybody else. I just simply want to share my journey, how I got to where I am, and I hope that I can encourage somebody else that might be dealing with the same things that I'm dealing with or that I dealt with at that time. Okay, cool. We good. Ain't nobody judging nobody here, because I done lived a life. I still live a life. All of us are different, completely on different paths, and it is what it is. Let it be. All right. So a little bit about me. I am originally from Kansas City, Missouri, born and raised. I currently live in Dallas, Texas. About 5 years ago, I took a leap of faith. It was, well, I guess almost 6 now. Dang, it's crazy. Anyways, I moved to Dallas in 2016. I didn't have a job. I really honestly didn't have no money. I didn't have no plan. And I know that sounds crazy. It's because it is crazy. It's the craziest thing I've ever done. But honestly, it's the best thing that I've ever done. It's the best thing that I've done for my life. So I graduated from college in 2015, and a little bit about, I guess, my background. I had previously been working in the radio industry. I worked for Carter Podcast Group, which is, people in Kansas City might know it as like Hot 103 Gems. I wasn't on air, but I was doing some behind the scenes things there. And I also co-hosted a radio show on an actual different station. We were on air. It was like a part-time show that we did, and we would embrace our local artists, and it was a guest host, and it was cool. And this is before podcasting was really like booming like it is now. So who knows what would have happened if we kept going. But my co-host ended up moving back to Atlanta, and then I don't know, it just was time to kind of walk away. But I was also a guest host on another up-and-coming show, and I don't even know if that's a thing anymore, to be honest. God works in mysterious ways. But I was doing all that, and I had all these plans. Like, okay, boom, like it's kind of popping off for me right now. I know we in the beginning stages, but I had plans. I had always had a plan to move to the promised land, the great state of Texas. And side note, why does everybody migrate to Texas? Now, I know that I live in Texas too, so I can't really talk, but everybody wants to move to Texas. And to be honest, we are full. Houston is super packed. Dallas is packed too. Why don't y'all go to San Antonio, Austin, somewhere else, okay? And I'll be honestly, sometimes I'll be thinking like, is God leading everybody here? Because I know it's a big state, but like, we need to build some new cities or something. Anyways, I ended up in Dallas, which if you listen in the beginning, I said like I was going to move to Houston. I don't know if I said that, but like that's what my plan was. I had actually had an opportunity in Houston, but as you know, during that time I was interviewing and I was still kind of new to my faith. Like I hadn't really submerged myself completely, but enough to have a discerning voice like, this ain't what you need to do. And I'm thinking like, God, like, but this is what I want, and this is such a big station, and like Houston is lit. Like, who knows what I would have become, and I know I wouldn't be who I am now had I made that decision. Anyways, I turned that job down, and a few months later, like I kind of was dealing with some things in Kansas City, And I don't know what anybody else's story is, but for me, I didn't find a job right out of college. It wasn't like that. Like I was feeling my schedule. It was busy. I was like really grinding, trying to like establish myself, but I couldn't find like a full-time job at that time, and I was very, very, very depressed. And I'm sure some other people may have had that experience, especially like when you have my degree is in PR, and anybody who knows that industry knows like you got to have some experience. Like you're not about to just jump up and just be successful. You got to really do the groundwork, and you got to do some freelance work. And all of this was very new for me. Like I'm a first gen graduate, so I didn't really have like the blueprint. I'm really was out here just figuring it out on my own. Anyways, like it got to the point to where I was so depressed. I'm like, okay, let me go to church, child, because everything that I'm doing is literally not working. And when I say depressed, like I was suicidal, and it's just crazy that I put my business out here like that. But I was literally planning on like the day and the how. Like I already had plans, and then God kind of like tugged on my heart, like, hey, you heard me when I told you, no to this job in Houston, but like trust me, like surrender yourself to me, basically. Like let me lead you, because your way isn't gonna work and you're gonna fail every time. So I was like, okay, I give up, God. I won't give me another I'm gonna give you a shot. And Dallas came to mind, and I never wanted to live in Dallas. That was never my plan. I mean, I know a lot of people live in Dallas, but I was trying to go big or go home, child. So anyways, a few months passed, and I ended up, I knew somebody from, which is so crazy. She's like my sister, but she was a teacher's aide when I was in 7th grade. This is so random. But we stayed in touch, and she embraced me like a big sister, over time. And we stayed in touch. She lived in Arlington, Grand Prairie area. She was like, you're welcome to stay here till you figure it out. So I moved to Dallas with nothing. Like it was so many different things that I was going through at that time, but I'll share it later. But it was rough. So I'm like, okay, I have to get out of here. And I literally moved with nothing. I slept on an airbed for maybe 8 weeks or so before I even got a job. And it was another month before I got my own apartment. Anyways, I know that's kind of detailed, but like that was my story. So during that, it just kind of showed me like, okay, if I'm gonna like really give my life to Christ, like I really gotta trust him. And even though it hurt for me and it was confusing and I was frustrated, and even like I said, it took me 8 weeks to get a job. Like I eventually had a part-time job, but it wasn't enough to really do anything. Some days I didn't eat. And if my family or anybody's listening to this, they probably gonna be like, why you ain't ask for help? But at that time, I was also really struggling with like my pride. So I wasn't gonna ask anybody for help. Now, eventually, some of them nights, my stomach was empty, child. And I was like, okay, my grandma want to give me some money. So-and-so want to give me some money to help. And I never I always show my gratitude. But sometimes I would have to be strategic about how I was going to eat. Like, okay, if I get Chipotle, I can ask for the extra rice and the extra beans. Like, I was really out here struggling. But God provided for me, and he made a way. And he stripped me from my old ways and like just my pride, which is like the biggest thing. And I had to learn to humble myself and really trust him in the seasons that were dark, seasons that I did not understand. Like, how can you make something happen? But it's just, he's so strategic. He connected me with some women who who had the same background experience as like what I was pursuing, and like really took me under their wing and really helped me. So that is just kind of like how I ended up. And when I gave my life to Christ, I had no idea that it would make me feel like such an outsider. It's not a bad thing at all, but it was something that I had to learn how to accept, because like, to be honest, looking at some of my friends who were able to do certain things and I couldn't do it. And I didn't have the desire to do things either. And I'm like, God, why do I feel like this? Like, I feel like I was being punished for like my past, or, I'm like, why is it like this? Like, I thought that if I gave my life to you, everything was just gonna be all, it would not, I'm not gonna say like perfect, but like, dang, this don't feel good. It don't feel like I could just go out and do what I wanted to do. And that's not the way God had it. That's not the way he designs anybody. That's just not the way life is. And so I had to learn how to just embrace my uniqueness of like, okay, becoming a new creation. And it doesn't mean that God like dropped this halo over me and I became super holier than thou overnight, because I'm gonna be honest, I'm still a work in progress, and somebody might catch me in a bad moment and my actions ain't gonna look like Christ. Okay, I'm just being honest. But I want you to know, like, that's okay. Everybody's path is different. Your convictions might not be the same. Like, I might not drink or I might not smoke anymore or do certain things that I probably used to do. And whoever, friends might do it. Like, that is your business. It is not, it don't have nothing to do with me or where you are with your walk with Christ. But I know for me, I was completely isolated in my ways. Like, I just became new. I didn't have those desires. And that was a season for me where I just reflecting back on those two words, like set apart. Like, he literally set me apart from like who I was and what I wanted, and like stripped me and made me new. And yeah, I ended up in Dallas, and I've been here for almost 6 years, and I've had some of the greatest experience. I've connected with people. I've had some great jobs. I've been in some rooms that I never thought I would be in. Like, God really showed out, and it took time to build my faith. And that's just what this journey is. And so I just want to encourage somebody, like, if you are in that space and you don't know what's happening, you don't know, your life don't look like what you thought, what you planned, like, relax, because you're not the author. You can try to be the author and you still gonna be stressed out, but you might get through it, whatever. But for me, as a believer, like, I had to really like surrender my plans. Okay, whatever you say, not my will, your will be done. Like, and so I know that everybody's journey might not be like mine. Some of y'all might have had a lit story, and if you did, like, share with me. I want to know, because maybe I can get you on the podcast and we can talk about your story. So DM me, like, if you want to share. We'll figure that out. But some people might want to know, like, hey, how do you get to that space? How do you get to like know yourself? Maybe how do you get to know God, or like, help me because I'm stuck. Like, all right, so let's evaluate some of those things. First, I want you to start by asking yourself a couple of questions. Now, the big question, like, who am I? That's a loaded question for sure. So maybe take some time, like, let's deconstruct that a little bit. Who do you think you are? What are you about? What are you good at? What do you like about yourself? What are some things that you love about yourself? Or what are some things that you would like to improve? What don't you like about yourself? Like, I don't really think you can, like, figure your whole life out by just writing it on a piece of paper, but it's a good way to kind of like take a step back and what do I think about myself? Like, let's write that down first. And there's nothing wrong with checking in with yourself from time to time. Like, maybe take some time to just do a little bit deeper self-reflection. So like, a great option is prayer and meditation. That's, to me, a great way to start. And what I mean by that, like, talking to God, talking to your creator. I know some of y'all like to call him the universe or whatever, no shade, but just to be still. There's so much that comes from just the stillness of just, let me meditate, like, just be quiet. And that even means, like, another hack, getting off of social media, because that helped me a lot, because we don't realize how much time goes into scrolling. Even if it's like, sometimes, like, I'll find myself, if I'm watching TV, I'm scrolling on Twitter or scrolling Instagram, like, girl, focus. Let's focus on one thing. And so social media is a major distraction, but that every now and then I will take a break to just say, hey, let me figure myself out, like, let's get away to these distractions. Another great thing is journaling. For me, this is I guess I don't really believe in like New Year's resolutions, but like things that I want to focus on in the new year. And for me, that's journaling again. Like, last year, or maybe a year before, it was 2020. I dedicated myself to journaling every single day, no matter if I did nothing. And that was when, like, 2020 was when I really got a chance to like really get to know myself the most. So I was just journaling anything that I felt. Have a journal for like the year, for the month, whatever. So that's also another great tool to have, just to kind of reflect on your day. Just journal. That'll help you. And then once you see yourself, growing, or, you get to a better place, you can come back and read, like, dang, like, I used to be here and now I'm here. I used to feel like this and now I'm here. So like, that is a great way to reflect. I don't know, I think my best friend wrote this on a card for me, or she wrote it in a journal that she got from me, and it said, keep a journal because one day it'll keep you. And so that is a great tool to getting to know yourself. And another thing for me is music. Now, for me, when I say music, I mean like inspirational music, things that'll inspire you, that'll encourage you, especially like when you have moments of self-doubt or insecurities or whatever. I have like a playlist that I created just for my personal self. Y'all know how sometimes, like, if we sad, we'll listen to a sad song to make us even more sad. Like, it don't make no sense, but that's just what we do. But I also found myself like, okay, music is such a powerful tool. I wanted to create something that will uplift my spirits. And so it's a bunch of different songs that I go to, but one of my songs that I listen to that will like really encourage me when I be feeling like way ugly and broke down is called Royalty by Tasha Cobbs. And it just kind of reminds me of like what God says about me, what he thinks about me. And that is always one that'll get me going. I'll share more, creating a playlist called Let It Be the Playlist, and it'll be on Apple and Spotify, so you can search that and share. And if y'all actually have, this is such a side note, but if y'all have music or, inspirational songs or whatever, that works for you, hacks, send them to me, DM them to me, email it to me, and I'll add it to the playlist. And I would love to, just to keep the conversation going. Put me on some stuff, okay? But those are some of the things that work for me because it allowed me, a chance to kind of like take a step back. Let's get out of the norm. Let's focus. It is a great start, and I am not saying that once you answer all of those questions or once you follow all of these steps, you're going to have your whole life figured out, because you won't. And once you think you figured yourself out, life is going to take you on a whole new journey anyway. So just make that disclaimer. But those are some good starting tools just to kind of like, let's reflect on ourselves a little bit. And if you're like me, sometimes like that might not be enough. Like, hey, sis, that's cool and all that you're saying. I'm set apart, but like, I don't feel that way. So how do I know that I'm set apart? What sets me apart? And we can be as literal and talk about how different you are from everybody else. Like our identity, our thumb, like our fingerprint is not the same. Like even if you have an identical twin, like you don't think like the next person, you don't act like the next person, not 100%. Like God literally made you unique. And we can refer to the word. He says in Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. And that just means that God already had plans for you before you were you, before you made plans about your life, what you have planned right now, everything that you want to accomplish, all your goals. He already got plans for you. Like you wake up every day because you haven't, fulfilled his plans for your life. So that's something that I have to remind myself of when I don't feel like, oh, I'm special, like God sees me as special. I had to learn how to embrace, my uniqueness. I had to learn to embrace my transformation over the years, who I've become, especially since who I thought I was and like what I was going to be. I'm kind of not really any of those things. And it might sound crazy, but it's true. And I'm not saying like I haven't accomplished any great things or I haven't reached any of my goals, but I'm saying like 9.5 out of 10 times, I didn't reach the goals or the things exactly how I said I was going to do. Like, I thought that I would have, been in a different space right now or, doing different things. But God had plans for me. And sometimes, like, because of my actions, that caused his plans to, like, I detoured from his plan. But he still, his grace is sufficient. Brought me right back to where I needed to be. And I wake up every day. I have choices to make every day. We do have free will. We don't have to be in God's will. We can still live a happy life and, do whatever. It doesn't have to be like super churchy or super spiritual all the time. But what I'm saying is like, God had a plan for you. He had a plan for your life. There's a reason, like he needed you. That's why you're still here. That's why you wake up every day. And like, once you fulfill your purpose or, when it's your time to go, ain't no need for you no more, But that is something that like I have to, especially in that time when I was really dealing with my depression, and I'm gonna be as real as I can be. Like I'm about to really tell y'all my business. Like there were days when I woke up and I would be mad. Like dang, like my life sucks. Why did I wake up this morning? I don't have nothing. Like, and this is such a side note too. But like we can be our biggest critic, our biggest hater, like our biggest negative self-talking person. Like we do the most. Like sometimes like we don't be kind to ourselves. And I think that like if we're not kind to ourselves, like we're going to attract things that aren't so kind to us. Like, and it just kind of it reminded me like, hey, once I started seeing myself a little different, my life started to change. I started to attract things that were better for me, that helped me get to the next level, which like not being sad and like listening to music that made me even more sad. Like I had to like switch it up. Let's listen to some inspirational thing. Let's watch some sermons. Let's go outside. Let's, take a walk. Let's exercise, whatever. Like I had to really like take some steps to do some things different, because if I didn't, like I would have stayed, feeding my own mind negativity, and it wouldn't help me, get out of that space. It wouldn't help me embrace the uniqueness that God has placed on my life. And yeah, like you might have to like switch some things up to remind yourself, like I am unique. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm going to treat myself like I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm going to do things better. I'm going to, even if nothing in my life is happening the way that I want it to, like, God sees me. He knows exactly where I am. Like, figure it out. Try something new. Do something different. Like, remind yourself of your uniqueness. Like, you don't have to be like anybody else. Close your eyes, and just vision yourself like, okay, God made me special. What are some great things about myself that I like, that I enjoy? What can I build upon? What can I change about myself? Like, just embrace that uniqueness that God has placed in your life, because he needed you. That's why he made you, and that's why you still woke up this morning, because he needs you. So yeah. And maybe those steps are like helpful, cool. But if you want to know, like, what does God really say about me? What does he think about me? Who does he say that I am? That's a great time for you to get into God's word and figure out what he says about you, what he thinks about you. I'll share some of the verses that I remind myself of when I need to be encouraged of, like, who God says I am. And it's, again, Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. I set you apart. So, bam, he already had a plan for me. Even if the plans that I have for myself ain't looking out like, okay, maybe this ain't aligned with what God has for me. Or maybe his timing, because that's another thing. We get caught up with, like, okay, well, these are good plans. Like, being like a desire for marriage, like, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Okay. But maybe it's not time for that yet. Maybe there's still more work that I need to do within myself. Maybe the person that God has set apart for me is not ready yet. So instead of dwelling on like what you don't have, let's work on like, okay, how can I improve myself for where I am right now? Another verse that I like to refer to a lot is Romans 12:2. And it's, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So that's something that I have to remind myself when I get caught up in comparing myself. Like, hey, I'm not supposed to look like the world. I'm not supposed to be doing what everybody else is doing. He made me unique. He made me special. Don't conform. Don't switch up your ways. Keep walking in your own path, in your own journey. You'll get to where you need to be eventually. Another one is Ephesians 12:2. And that one is, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which he prepared beforehand, so we should walk in them. And that verse always reminds me of like my purpose. My purpose is not going to look like anybody else's purpose. It might not, he didn't give me a voice to sing. I mean, I can rap a little bit, but I'm not trying to be a rapper. I'm not trying to be a comedian or, these things. Like, walk in the uniqueness. And even if your purpose might not be on a platform, your purpose might not be, in the movies or being super popular or whatever, like that might not be the gift that he has for you. Your purpose might be being a beautician, but the people that's coming into your chair, you speaking life into them, you're pouring into them, or doing makeup, or, working at this company because he know that you're going to come across somebody who needs to hear your story, who might be at their wit's end. Like every gift that God gives us, they don't always look the same. The placement is not going to always be the same. So don't discredit that. And that's what that scripture, it reminds me of that. Like, he created me for good things. He created me to do his will, to, like, walk in that, embrace that. It doesn't have to look like anybody else. And, one of my favorite ones is, when he tells you that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That's Psalms 139:14. I had to remind myself of that. Like, imperfections, like, there's no imperfection, because perfectionism is not real. The man made that up. There's no, Jesus is perfect. He's the only person that's perfect. So every flaw that I have, everything, God knows he made me this way. Everything, choices that I made, I got a scar on my face from, oh well. And when I was little, I used to think like, oh man, now I'm scarred. Like, it just used to mess with my self-esteem a little bit because I had this scar on my face. Now at this big age, you can barely even see it. When I tell people like, yeah, I had stitches in my face before, they be like, where? Oh, I didn't even see it. But, I used to look at those like scars and just different things that's happened to me in my life and think like it would discredit like my self-esteem, me gaining weight or losing too much weight or, whatever. Like, my forehead is real big. And so I used to like, and listen, I'm honest. I know myself. I accept myself. It is what it is. But sometimes like, I have to, like, when I get into those modes of like tearing myself down about how I look or how I sound or what I'm doing, like, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Like, everything marvelous is his works, and embrace that. And that is it. Like, okay, it doesn't matter. So Those are some scriptures. Sometimes I have to write those down. And something else that I started doing was writing positive affirmations about myself, or like thoughts that I had. And I'm talking about like being Mary Jane. Do y'all remember that show? She used to have, write these sticky notes all from books and things and have them all over her house, all over her mirror. Now, I kind of cleaned it up a little bit, but I literally have affirmations on my mirror. So I see it when I wake up in the morning, wash my face, brush my teeth. I have them in my workstation. Just if I'm listening to a podcast or something that I have that will like remind me or encourage me, like, hey, write that down just so I can remind myself of what God thinks about me, or remind myself when I'm feeling ugly today, like, girl, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are beautiful, okay? Because He made you that way. That's just a good tangible thing to have, like to inspire you, to inspire you, to encourage you. So I would say, maybe take some notes and start doing those things, and that will help you just to remind you so you can keep feeding yourself that, because like I said, we can be our biggest critic and our worst enemy if, we don't treat ourselves the right way, if we're not feeding ourselves positivity and feeding ourselves affirming things. So those are some of the tangible things that I do. And I hope that, maybe you can take some of those things away. And if you do something different, like maybe exercise or yoga, or I don't know, whatever it is, like maybe share some things with me. Comment on this post, on the post below on my Instagram page. Like, share some things. I want to know, like, how do y'all stay encouraged? What do you do to make yourself feel good? Maybe it's getting up in the morning and going for a walk, or, like, tell me. So I'll put me on, okay? I hope these things are really beneficial to y'all. Like, I hope that you are taking some good notes and are inspired by that. Like, that is the whole reason why I am on this thing, telling y'all my business and being vulnerable and all of these things, okay? Those are some things that I do to help me out, like some tangible things to help me figure myself out, or, encourage me, lift me up. Those are just some of the things that I do. But overall, we're talking about identity, something that, like, the biggest thing that I have learned, with discovering myself, or, my goals, or where I want to be. It's really just about mastering what season I am currently in. That's something that I still struggle with to this day. It's worrying so much about my future, how I want it to go, what I want to have. Like, in reality, yeah, there are some things that I can do to achieve those things, to attain those things, but I don't have no control. Like I said, that's what 2020 has shown us, that we don't have no control about. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't got that is not our business, okay? Yes, I'm not saying that you're not supposed to, like, prepare or have goals and, do things out here, just be reckless and just say God is gonna order my steps. Like, yeah, He will, but, like, use your brain, be wise, in your decision making and things like that. But I'm just saying, stop worrying so much about your future. And maybe you're at a place where maybe you're not worried about your future because you don't see one, okay? And I know that might sound dark, but, like, honestly, I've been there too. I've had days when I wondered if I would ever see myself outside of my current situation. Like, I couldn't see myself outside of my current situation. I didn't know if I would ever be able to be happy. I didn't know if depression would ever leave. Sometimes I even question if God loves me. And I know that that's crazy, but like I said, like, our mind can be a really tricky place if we don't treat it well. If we don't treat ourselves well, we gonna start telling us things and making up lies and worrying about things. That's also called anxiety. Like, we'll start worrying about things that aren't even real, making up stuff that is not real. So you really, really have to be kind to your mind. Oh, I should put that on a t-shirt. Be kind to your mind, okay? Don't nobody steal my idea. I'm gonna trademark it. But basically what I'm getting at is just learn how to be present. Don't stress so much on the future, because we don't have control like we think we do. Now, I'm not saying ditch your goals. Remember that. I'm not saying, like, I do think that it is good to, have goals and to take steps to achieve those goals. And, I think that it's good to have dreams and desires. And, in God's timing, He'll give you the desires of your heart, as long as your heart is aligned with His. But what I'm saying is focus on where you are in the present, in the now. A lot of times we miss out on so many things that are currently happening in our lives, or, with our loved ones, or, the certain places that we're in, or certain opportunities, because we're so focused on the next stage. And I think a lot for me, when I was in college, especially because, like, when you're in college, people who go to college, or like maybe graduating high school or whatever, you just have these big goals, like, oh, I'm going to be here, I'm so focused, and, like, you miss out on those precious moments. Or, like, maybe if you got kids and you just can't wait for them to maybe I can't wait for my kid to be born, or maybe I can't wait for my kid to get bigger, and all these things. Like, let's focus on now, because those moments will swiftly pass. Like, I cannot believe I've been out of college as long as I've been. Like, I'm a real adult. It be blowing my mind all the time. Like, dang, I wish that, like, stress. I thought I was stressed out in college. Girl, I wish that I had the stress, what I called stress in college. I wish that I had that amount. Like, being grown, paying bills, like, that's stress, okay? Going to work every day when you don't feel like it, dealing with real life, like, that is stress. So I'm just saying, like, we focus so much on, like, the next phase that we miss out on our current, like, our present time, like, our moments that we'll never ever get back. Something that my best friend reminded me of. Oh, and shout out to my best friend. Everybody, I be feeling sad for people who feel like I don't need no friends, because, like, my circle, my friends, they really have helped me out in some of my lowest moments. And, like, even to be a friend, to help out other people, like, those that's precious. So I just hope that, like, if you don't have community, I pray that you get community. Maybe find somebody, like, that is like a soul, somebody that fulfills your soul, not just, like, turning up with you or, doing reckless things, but, like, somebody who can really hold you accountability partners. Like, everybody needs somebody. You're not supposed to be out here doing things on your own, because, like I said, like, when we're not kind always to our minds. And so I hope that you have, can find a friend, like, and it's not too late if you're young, if you're old, like, it is not too late for you to meet somebody and, like, hit it off. And, like, and it doesn't have to, like, relationships don't always have to be romantic, but, like, I believe everybody needs, like, a friend or somebody. Anyways, that was, like, I feel like maybe somebody needed to hear that. But something that my best friend reminded me of was that, like, I focus so much on the destination that I miss out on the journey. And the journey is the best part. She always would tell me that, especially, like, when I first moved and I'm, like, looking for jobs and all of these things. And I just, like, oh, this sucks. And I was just so focused, like, okay, I got this. Now I'm focused on the next. And she just be like, girl, like, you need to focus on where you are right now. Like, the future is gonna come, because you don't have control over that. Like, be present in the now. Okay, y'all, I hope you have enjoyed the very first episode of Let It Be the podcast. I actually enjoyed sharing. It kind of brought me back to, brought me down memory lane and reminded me, like, hey, girl, you still on this thing. Like, you made some great progress. You still have some, room to grow, but just embrace where you are. Like, I needed this for myself. So I really, really hope that I encouraged somebody else, and maybe you saw yourself, in my heard yourself in my story. But I just want to leave you with, like, the takeaway from this episode. And it's just simply this, like, let go of the unrealistic ideals about yourself or who you feel like you're supposed to be, and just embrace where you are right now, whether you're struggling, whether life is lit for you, whether you're the happiest you've ever been or the saddest that you're ever been. God is not going to just leave you hanging, especially if you are struggling, like, with your identity. So take some time, follow those steps, like, journal, pray and meditate, be quiet, take a social media break, just get to know yourself, spend some time with yourself, find out what you like, what you don't like. And if you're struggling, like, ask God to help you. Ask God to help you see yourself like He sees you, and envision, the life that you want, and just make some small steps to, like, change some things up in your daily routine to just remember, like, hey, like, I'm fearfully and I'm wonderfully made. God set me apart. He made me unique. He made you for a reason. So remember, like, you got this. God is not finished with you. This is just a part of your journey. So keep going. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope that you tune in for the next episode. Before I go, make sure that you are following Let It Be Podcast on Instagram. That way you'll stay up to date with your daily inspiration or prayers or funnies or whatever it is that I decide to share that day. And also, make sure you are subscribed. Follow us on Spotify and Apple and iHeart and Google Podcasts, wherever you're listening to the podcast. That way you know when the next episode is coming. But in the meantime, take these jewels and apply them, okay? Talk to y'all next time. Bye.